From Vault Channel 9, this is Grant's Cauldron, where the headlines stop and the truth begins. Please welcome the host of the program, Grant Calder.
Good evening. I'm Grant Calder. Tonight we have a special presentation on Vault Channel 9, McCoy versus Klink. Two visions, one question, the future of the federal remnants. In a nation still defined by collapse, uncertainty, and competing ideas of restoration, the debate is no longer whether America will endure, but what form it will take when it does. Representing the Renaissance Party, Matt McCoy, party founder, major in the New York Last Order, and presidential candidate, argued for renewal through state capitalism, Republican order, and biological continuity. Opposing him, Jeremias Klink, Federalist icon, vice president, entrepreneur, and also presidential candidate, contends that the remnants of the old federal system must be preserved, reassembled, and defended, even if doing so demands sacrifice. Tonight, there are no campaign speeches, no slogans, only answers. Vault Channel 9 presents McCoy versus Klink, the future of the federal remnants.
Both of you claim to be the rightful heirs to the United States. Before we get into specifics, what does the word American mean in 2296?
What it means to be American is to first, obviously, be born on American soil, and kind of secondary would be the idea behind it, and like assimilating in the culture would be secondary. Like, say, legionaries, just because they're born here, I wouldn't say they're Americans.
Unlike McCoy, I believe all that are born on American soil are American. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have federal citizenship. Doesn't mean you belong to the enclave. But it does mean you were born here and you're under our banner.
Chicago has become the ideological battleground of the post-Eden era. Why here, and why now?
Well, because of what I built. This whole place would not be around without federalism. McCoy can't say the same. He talks about Chicago. What is New York even? It's not a place where you can go and live. It's a place where you go and suffer. If you want to build, Chicago is the place. Industry, citizenship, water, and electricity. There's no monopoly on state resources. If you can do it and you can buy it, you can become it.
Well, Mr. Klink's stance is, very tied to his people, and frankly, I feel like he has very little understanding about New York, since in New York, it has become, a new era, kind of, now, the more I think about it, because federalism, although when I founded this party, I never really heard of federalism. I just got out of the mobile base crawler, and I decided to make something of myself. But now it's circling back to Chicago, because us New Yorkers are starting to realize more and more about the world around us after so many years of trying to rebuild the city of liberty. And that city of liberty, it may not be liberty to all, but it surely is liberty to American civilians.
McCoy dodging the question. His manifesto mentions Chicago. Chicago is the ideological battleground. He wants to run in Chicago elections. He's not even legitimate. He's acting here like it doesn't matter what Chicago does. It's New York. New York's not the question. The question is Chicago. Why is it the battleground? Why are we not talking in New York?
Because the people from New York have, just started being exposed to this new ideals of this city that, we heard of before, but we didn't really take much into. And now, since, like Chicago and their, like advancements in their endeavors have, gone more east towards us, we found it that these people in Chicago must have to hear what we have to say here in New York.
McCoy has had the chance. I know Chicago has existed for a long time, but it's only been 500 residents for most of that period, with several outposts hosting several hotbed counterpart outpatient people. However, New York's been around for at least 23 years, since 2278, 2279. What is there to show for it? Chicago has defeated the neo-feudalist domestic terrorists that call themselves the Midwestern Brotherhood of Steel. And what does he have to show for it? Maxson is still around in his backyard. He flies through New York like it's nothing. The skyscrapers acting as tours. When it comes to having the Institute handled, he didn't help. He didn't set that up. I did. We brought the Institute scientists who helped facilitate our victory to Chicago. I did that. Federalism did that. Daniel Parker and Hayden Trench as presidents made all of this happen. What can he say for himself?
The glory isn't about winning wars, because what we were trying to do for all this time, we're building up, right? We see it as it's not worth our time, especially when somebody who actually fought under Eden saw the Brotherhood, and they were weak, but now what can we do about it? We don't want to get ourselves exposed. We're waiting here. What's better to do? And considering that you are so naive to point towards the fact that I haven't dealt with the elder up in the Commonwealth yet is a really, really counter-intuitive point of yours, because you don't know. You never fought there.
I was there in Boston. I don't refer to it as the Commonwealth. And an ideology without any verifiable success is not an ideology worth even discussing, let alone voting for.
Matt McCoy. Your party draws a hard biological line. 0 FEV, no exceptions. Why is absolute exclusion safer than reform or treatment?
See, my party draws a hard biological line for, 0 FEV contaminants, no exceptions. This absolute exclusion is safer than reform or treatment because if we don't keep these people at arm's length, maybe even further, then they start to embed themselves into our society. And considering that these people, they're genetically impure, right? I don't think that they have, anything good to bring to the table. And from what I've seen in the Capital Wasteland is just a bunch of poor scramblers who do what they do for money and food, right? They have nothing to give to New York. So keeping them at arm's length is a protection against what we hold. In Chicago, for example, they integrate them more, which over time it has fostered more intelligence and understanding among the population, but the community is on the teetering point, at least I believe, because these are people who are segregated.
McCoy once again drawing to a bad conclusion. Wastelanders are stupid. They can't do anything of value. Well, look outside. The world fucking sucks. And I know that's not safe for TV, but it just is terrible. But they still make a choice to keep living every single day like it's their last and make the most out of it for them and for their children. These people are infected. And yeah, sometimes they have the bad ideologies and even go as far as hurting one another, such as the raiders and looters. But when you come to it, you need them. A country cannot survive without a population. If it's just left to a handful, 100, 200, 1,000 maybe, who's going to do all the labor if they all think they're pompous and elite? You need these people to foster an economy that supports the top people who aren't infected, while at the same time incentivizing the people who've never had a non-hard day in their life to do something. They like luxury. They like comfort. They don't like violence. If peace was an option, they'd take it. And that's what the Federalist Party believes in. Taking action to make them feel safe, boost them up in the economy, and incentivize them rather than exclude them.
Well, what your point is kind of pointing to is that the society built around Chicago, Chicago's inclusivity, makes for more, productive value of the community. And we get around similar productive value, considering that, yeah, we still use them for labor, we still grant them amenities. They can live fairly comfortable lives if they work for us, right? But also, you're kind of pointing to this group of people like they're great. They're members of the community, in which, yeah,
they're Americans.
They are now, but what are you gonna do with them once you got all of America back? Because right now you are gradually keeping the society a little bit, suppressed, right? You're not letting them have as much kids, not letting them take certain spots in the government. They don't really gain a lot of power, and eventually you're going to outgrow such shoes anyways. So what's the difference between it happening now and it happening later?
Well, one, they're going to get smaller as a population in general. By limiting them only 2 kids, in theory, you'd only have the repetition of a male and a female. It'd be the same population for decades, while the upper class just grows larger and larger. The bottom supports the weight of the top. But that doesn't mean that the bottom falls through. The bottom is carried up to greater and greater heights by the top. And as more non-FEV afflicted peoples are present in our world, they can take more of those jobs over that we needed to give over. But in the meantime, why we would even bother is because there's not enough people. I never seen New York's production records, but there's no commercial industries in New York. There's no stocks you can trade. So when he says the line, we have the same production values, I only have to assume what he really means is, oh, I have more bottle cap refineries trying to steal every fucking bottle cap from you than the next guy, whereas we don't even use trash caps at all.
Jeremias Klink. Your party believes FEV-afflicted humans can be cured or managed. Why gamble the future of the species on a mutagen that once nearly wiped out humanity?
Well, Eden's mutagen would have worked. And I know some would argue, well, it was going to wipe out everybody. But I can tell you, in my own experiences in Boston, when I gathered the Institute Exiles, I read that one thing that happened before my departure was a scientist turned himself into a mutant to escape the Institute's reach. When confronted with that data, people said they saw him before and he was no longer a super mutant. It is possible to cure people of the FEV, even turn abominations such as the super mutants into humans. Whether or not it's wise, I don't know. But if I can make a human into a pure human, why not? And it's not a gamble. It works. They're worth it. They're American people.
Right. So I see your point, and you're trying to make it like, yeah, these people can still be American, but big problem with them being Americans is, initially speaking, these people are, yeah, obviously we know wastelanders, blah, 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 but on top of that, who's to say that they'll actually get all this, human society, which, maybe it worked in Chicago, right? But to our experiences here in New York, the the communities are a little split up a little differently. And when there has been such a culture that has been built up and fostered among a group of people, like let's say you were to move out of Chicago, you would go like literally like say like anywhere else, right? You cannot say that a raider from the 80s, a legionary from Caesar's Legion, a Brotherhood scribe could all, like if they abandoned their old ways, which just isn't possible, could be American. There's this culture has been building for 200 years. 200 years is all it took, less even, for American culture to have grounds here in the North American continent, right? But it's been 200 years. America is a mere shadow of what it was, and all of these people have been building their own communities after that, and I don't think that they'll be able to just be welcomed back in.
McCoy surprises me. He believes in the mutagen. He believes we can cure FEV-afflicted humans. So we're not debating here on whether it's valid. What he thinks, what he believes, or from what he said, he doesn't believe the outcome justifies the means. And by that, he believes if you're FEV-afflicted, you're not worth anything. You're below him. So it's not worth it to even try to save you. And if we were to save you, you're a threat because you think for yourself. How can one claim to be the mayor of New York, whatever he wants to call himself, if he doesn't believe in the First Amendment right to free expression? America is more than the borders. It's more than the people. It's an idea. Doesn't matter if you're infected with a disease or not. You can believe in the American dream. Even the zombies and the abominations could technically do that. But the truth is, they have zero interest in doing that. If they wanted to do it, the zombies could have done it first. If the mutants wanted to do it when they had a vast army, they could have done it second. But instead, we are left with the scrambled egg of America, and to put it back together in its shell. We need every person we can. And if we can cure the FEV, we can cure everything.
Well, I see your point, and I see you're trying to make it seem so that the culture can be different because First Amendment rights, but you also got to understand that it's of people who are meant to be citizens. These wastelanders.
If I may,
they're not.
Did Caesar not take the Neo-Mongols, which you call Caesar's Legion or Caesar's Legion? Did Kaiser, not take a bunch of tribals and make them believe in an institution? Now, we could disagree or agree on our ideology. I don't know if you've been to the West Coast, but did they not make them believe in the mission? Took a bunch of savages who could barely speak the king's English, to put it bluntly, Did he not take them and make them into ideological pure soldiers for his cause?
I see your point, and to answer your question, yes, I have been to the Mojave. That was kind of late, around my 20s, say. Wasn't there for long, doing a few missions there, but he did, but that's because the culture and idea of Rome is, pre-modern thought. Like, that's not what we practice. That's not the sophisticated society that us Americans practice, right? So it's an old system that fits in the minds of those who are under it, because Caesar's Legion is anti-intellectuals, right? So comparing them to assimilating to us, which I'm pretty sure we can all agree that we are the pinnacle of psychological development, considering that we have built a society that has lasted for around 400 years.
McCoy, I have a question for you. Do you not believe that America is superior to Rome? Do you have defeatist thoughts in your mind that if a tribal man with a couple of books from New California can inspire and take over a quarter of our country in just a matter of years, that the American nation, what George Washington and the founding fathers fought for, is not superior in every way, that conquered a continent?
Quite the opposite, because frankly, I don't know exactly what you said, but yeah, I understand the tribal won that, right? And the tribal won because he got lucky, because the systems in place were bad, not to the ideological level, but because the leadership was naive. But I would like to hear you repeat that, because I'm not sure what you're directly pointing to.
I'm pointing to the fact that Edward Sallow, the Kaiser, took a bunch of tribals and unified them into a force that you believe is more capable than the American government. Than the American system.
I'll say it like this. Okay. I didn't say it like that, and I didn't, if I did, I didn't mean to say it like that. But now that you asked me that, I feel like I'm starting to think that, yeah, they are not better than, pre-war America, but in the terms of their achievements in, warfare, it is vastly impressive. I will give them that. But
so why aren't you Leggett McCoy?
Is built for failure. It is not going to last.
If it works better, why aren't you Leggett McCoy? Why aren't you Leggett McCoy?
I don't follow people who win a lot. I follow ideas that feel right to me.
So you would grandstand that a moral victory is better than a total victory. That you would stand on your morals than to actually be successful. To make things better is actually worse than to make things right.
Define make things better. Like, what do you mean? Are you saying
to be
Caesar's Legion is making
successful, to win wars, to bring people into your society, to build empires, to build successful businesses. I mean, the Legion has a successful slave trade that completely abandons the 13th Amendment. They mint gold coins. What are you using as a currency? Trash caps?
No. We mint our own dollars. We call them Yankees. But back to the thing that you said.
Why is a dollar valuable? Why is a Yankee valuable? What gold is inherently valuable. People know its intrinsic values. Why is a Yankee valuable? Why should I trade a new federal dollar, a post 2280 dollar for a Yankee, which I'll have to ask the Treasury Department how they feel about that, Mr. McCoy.
The Yankee was a currency built by, us former Enclave remnants from the mobile base crawler, then we came on an agreement with the overseer. We need to set in a system separate from the wastelanders.
Is a Yankee worth what it's printed on or minted on? What is a Yankee worth?
Well, what is it worth?
What can I buy with a Yankee? What am I secured with? What gives me faith in that?
Like, yeah, what does it mean? The America abandoned the gold standard, so like, what do you necessarily
when
mean?
We had power, when we had authority over the whole world, and they knew that American dollars meant American power. New York isn't the only power in New York, so a Yankee is not the only currency in New York. There's nothing backing that power.
We don't need to control the whole city to make people know that we're here or that we are the primary power. Because, yeah, in the city, how the city is set up, we are not present for most of the time. We just keep people in the city limits, and what that does is it restricts trade movement in and out of the city. So we hold the city's economy. Anything in New York isn't in our possession, but by de facto, it's ours. It's ours to take from the locals, it's ours to extract, and it's ours to find.
McCoy's response here shows his lack of economic development. What a Yankee fundamentally seems to be is a self-serving currency. For an average person, you can't buy milk and eggs with it. But for McCoy, he can pretend to mint a few coins, pay his own state monopoly for the state resources he already owns, just to pretend like it means something. But if you can't buy water, buy electricity, buy furniture or some commercial goods, it means nothing.
Most of the people who are excluded from buying such stuff, and excluded in not noticeable numbers, are the people who are mutants or muties. That is because, yeah, we just don't want them to buy in our system. The people who are actually citizens of New York are able to buy in that stuff. You're able to live a fairly comfortable life. The amenities by the vault and the vast military resources found across the city has given us a lot of stability in our holdings and our protection.
McCoy, you've said heavily mutated beings should be killed on sight. How does the Renaissance Party prevent this policy from becoming indiscriminate violence?
So, I say, heavily mutated beings should be killed on sight. The Renaissance Party prevents this policy from becoming indiscriminate violence because we know what looks like a human, right? I'm pretty sure most of you here wouldn't be able to tell a pure from a wastelander by fact. And if you see deformities such as mutated ears, third ear, third eye, extra limb, etc., boils, stuff like that, it's visible stuff, right? It's as visible as someone being a ghoul. That's how basic it is. And I wouldn't say it's something to gloat about, but personally, I don't really think it matters how to prevent this policy from becoming indiscriminate violence, considering that these people, they aren't Americans, right? We're going to protect them. We're going to keep them in the city, but they're at our whim. They live on our land.
How can you tell the difference between someone who has boils from mutation versus someone who has boils from something like mumps? You're saying kill them on sight, but how can you tell? We know we can genetically test people for the forced evolutionary virus in their bloodstream. However, what you're saying is you wouldn't even bother testing them. You know by knowing. I can understand killing abominations and zombies on sight. People know what that looks like. But you're telling me you would just look at a wastelander who has mumps or lupus or another afflicting disease of the skin and immediately say, that person's clearly mutated from radiation or forced evolutionary virus. They have to die.
Circumstances matter, obviously, but in the grand scheme of things, doing actions like that generally doesn't matter. If it becomes, yeah, sure, too common, but
kill on sight, not imprison and test. Kill on sight.
Yeah, how often do you see a wastelander that gets sick? Okay.
All the time.
All the time?
They're all sick. They all have a disease. It's called a forced evolutionary virus, and it shows itself in many ways.
Yeah, but
there's no medicine anymore. How many wasteland doctors do you see traveling in caravans, going to every town because there's always someone sick? You're telling me you've never seen that? How naive. How grand it must be to be in your Wall Street, where you control all the resources, never to have to see the sick afflictions. Chicago has plenty of sick. You can come here and see them yourself.
By sick, I mean more bacterial diseases, like boils can be caused from, other things, but you don't see that, anywhere. So as far as I'm concerned, it's
You've never seen a sick man in a day in your life. How wondrous is it to be you, McCoy? How wondrous.
FEV is the most predominant sickness around, and it's
How can you tell? How can you tell? You've never been around them. Is everyone who has a cold or a cough inflicted with forced evolutionary virus?
Oh, I mean, there's not a lot of people with a cold or a cough.
So do you kill every person who has a cough?
Well, I don't
How do you know if they have a cough or they have a virus? A forced mutation? How do you know their throat isn't long because of a sick mutation you want to kill on sight?
The point is, they're not civilians. Okay, they're not American citizens. They're not in our system.
What if a enclaver or a vault dweller ran out of the vault, decided to come back, but had an illness, and you couldn't necessarily tell right away if they were a wastelander or not? How would you deal with that? Would you kill them on sight?
Identification, obviously. If they claim, we don't.
That's on sight. If you killed them on sight, so you're saying you don't kill on sight?
Depends. If we have,
how can you grandstand on a policy if you can't even defend it when it's challenged?
Okay, let's say somebody comes in with, Enclave gear, a vault jumpsuit. Yeah, sure, hear them out. But if they come in rags, they look like shit, who cares?
Have you ever been in the wasteland for very long? Do you know it doesn't take very long for armor and clothing to get mauled and mangled and for you to need to find something new? All of our clothing is old. It's 200 years old.
Problem was the capital wasteland itself. Most of the people who didn't really care much about how they were dressing were, obviously mutants, but never really had much of an issue when I was on deployment and stuff like that. Maybe that's just
it's very nice that you have a nice laundry. It's very nice that you have many clothes. I'm sure the American people would love to have more clothes. Can you hand some of those clothes to them?
Yeah, but your definition of America, Americans, right? Those people in Chicago, those wastelanders. I mean, like, you expect me to give them anything? Sure, let them live, but don't run your society with them.
I expect you to respect all peoples, all human beings, and realize that you need them.
Human. I think we can both agree they're humanoids, but human is a very liberal definition that you label on them.
If you're so adamant that these people are no longer human, why don't you restart Dick Richardson's plan and kill us all? Because only you are the purist.
Simply because, why not use the resource when it's there?
Then
Yeah,
you'd be a
just like you.
federalist. Then you believe in my ideology. If you think that
No,
they're not
that would be
worth it,
fair.
then you would just kill them all. You say you want to kill all heavily mutated beings, and you can't define illness and mutation. So why not gas everyone who isn't you?
Because it's just not in our best interests, because we use them in different ways than you, right? You use the mutants in, like in your society, right? You don't integrate them too well, sure, but you utilize them in your society. They can buy in, but how it's different here in New York, they don't buy in. They're kept at bay, right? We're not going to kill them because they have labor that we can use, right? And it would be not in our best interest to do that.
So why not enslave them if you believe you're so superior and you need them?
It's because I'm not sure you heard about this, but some president 300 some odd years ago, around 300 some odd years ago, passed something against that, right? Lincoln, it'd be very un-American to bring back slavery,
Indentured servitude. They have a crime against your state. You believe that they don't deserve to live. Why isn't that not a crime?
Well, it's not a crime because here in New York, you don't.
Is killing on sight not a death penalty? And is a death penalty not a judgment?
They're trespassing on American soil. They're not citizens. We only grant them mercy when it feels convenient and we have the upper hand over them, right?
So you're consciously hypocrites, and you know it.
I wouldn't use hypocrite, but if it matches what you're trying to say, I guess you can.
You say one thing, and then you do another. You say you want to kill them all on sight, but when they serve you, it's okay. You're just FEV afflicted and got boils, but you serve the economy well, so go ahead. You have a cough. You serve the economy well. You serve me. I'm your landlord. I'm Big McCoy, sitting on a tower with much joy.
Yeah. What's the problem with that? It's efficient. It works. Might not.
It's not
might
America.
Not be what
It's not America.
It is America. It's always been America. We're not just killing everybody. Yeah, we give them choices. We even give them.
How do you know? You kill them on sight.
How do we know?
How do you know? You're not saying zombies and abominations. You're saying heavily mutated beings. That's a very liberal use of the term mutated beings. Boils, things that could be defined as just as well as illnesses, if not mutations. Oh, he has an extra finger. Some pure people are born with extra fingers.
Well, I see it as in, does it actually matter? Like, in the big picture, we still have a bunch of people working for the system, and yes, we have killed a lot of wastelanders because of what we saw on them, but it clearly doesn't make a big enough impact to impact our numbers of efficiency.
Klink, your final cast includes slavery of ghouls and mutants. How is that morally or structurally different from the pre-war systems that collapsed the nation?
What's majorly different is the biological need. And it's not different to the way we treated people with tuberculosis, TB. We excluded them from society. We put them in institutions. Didn't mean we treated them less, but they didn't have the rights of the same as the other people. They were indentured to the federal government and state governments through asylums, tuberculosis centers, where we just place them as an institution. It's not different, and that made us survive when tuberculosis was a huge outbreak. As far as zombies and abominations, ghouls and mutants, it doesn't matter. They're no longer alive. They're dead. They're dead men walking. Super mutants, they don't have the brains anymore. Some of them are intelligent, but they're a threat to human economic development. And the zombies are as well, the ghouls. They live forever. They can be in radiation. If we want to save humanity, we need to control them and either allow them to mercifully kill themselves or work for the state. If they want to be a part of this government, they can. They have the option. But it's indentured servitude. It's not a violation of the 13th Amendment. They're not even alive anymore.
Well, just so you know that at the time, 1861, they didn't see slaves as human either. So, yeah, they're still slaves, and banning slavery. Yeah, so
you don't see black people as people?
No, that's what I said at the time. 1861.
You don't see black people as people? Even if you took the most liberal view or the most reactionary view of our ancestors, of the founding fathers, they believed in counting them in the census as 3/5 of a person.
That was a political negotiation. In culture, in practice, it was, they just weren't human. All right? And you, by labeling these people as not human, they're slaves. What's the difference? It's still slavery, and it's a violation of the 13th Amendment.
They're dead!
They're dead?
They're dead! Okay. They're not human anymore. They're dead. They're walking corpses. They don't even have the same brains half the time. You're talking about maybe a quarter of them having the same intellectual understanding as they did prior. There's only so many of them that have that intelligence. Most of them are feral. You've seen them. There's 100 ferals to one intellectually correct ghoul. There might be 1 in 10 super mutants that are intellectually correct and can understand mercy. The other 9/10 and 99 1800s believe in violence at the first call.
I mean, yeah, but like you're not really sounding any different from, what
They're
we saw in
useful.
1861.
They're useful for a reason, but they're not alive. They won't die naturally, which means they're already dead. They continue persisting far beyond the normal human lifespan.
Labor
There's
is
creatures
still
that
labor.
were zombies prior to the Great War. Plants that would infect ants, fungi that would infect ants and cause them to keep moving. Were the ants alive? Is this a Theseus' ship paradox? Are they still alive if they're being animated around and they have something functioning around? Or is it the fungi talking? Is it the FEV talking?
Well, look. Yeah, sure, you can call them not human, but it's still slavery, right? And
Do you own a dog,
you can do these
McCoy?
gymnastics. You can keep doing these gymnastics to
Do you own a dog?
get around.
Is your dog a
what?
slave to you, McCoy?
Is my dog a slave to me?
Is your dog a slave to you? Do you understand the idea that if it's not human, you can own it? You own a dog. If you can own a dog, why can't you own a dead corpse that's
the difference
walking
is
and
my
animated?
dog happily comes to me, right? He's not being, yeah, sure, I got him, I adopted my dog, right? But
What about a horse? You know what a horse is,
A
McCoy?
horse?
I know you might not have studied the books. How about a Brahmin? Is a Brahmin a piece of property, or is it a human being?
I'm gonna do labor. Slavery is doing the act of labor. Brahmins can't really do labor other than, like, I don't know, making.
Is caravanning around? Are you so naive? Is not carrying a bunch of traveling equipment and running a farm's plow not labor? Are they not working?
I mean, yeah, sure, they're working.
Are they
But at
not
the same
owned by the
time-
caravaneer or the trader or the farmer?
They're not being restrained. They're tamed. They're not being restrained. And if they had, and
You
if
think
they
a
had the
Brahmin
chance-
wants to carry a pack?
Well, it clearly looks as if the Brahmin doesn't want to leave. It looks like the Brahmin isn't dumping the pack and going away. So
They do all the time.
They want to, but they're staying. They have no incentive to leave because they're getting food. They're living. They have as much freedom as they're allowed to. Not allowed to, as much as they know. If they didn't feel okay there, they would leave.
So
Simple.
why not allow the indentured servitude of ghouls and mutants and tell them you're allowed to kill yourselves if you want?
You allow ghouls and super mutants to kill themselves.
Yes. They're
And
dead.
instead,
It's not suicide.
you're-
They're already dead. They're just taking the final stage of their death.
I mean, they're, yeah, human or not, they have questionable yet definite sentience. And I'm pretty
If
sure
a
they
Brahmin
know.
breaks a leg, do you not shoot it?
I mean, depends how much caps I have if I was a wastelander. If a Brahmin breaks a leg, I can fix it. I'm fixing it. It'll cost.
You think most
it'll
farmers can afford to have a doctor, a veterinarian? I mean, how many veterinarians are out in the wasteland come around and fix that Brahmin's leg rather than eat the meat?
That's fair. That's a fair thing to ask. But at the same time, they're not thinking of leaving. They're not thinking of suffering. That's the whole difference here. That's why what you're doing is illegal. It's unconstitutional, right? It's because these people, you think they want to work for you? No, they're killing themselves to escape from you.
Why not? If you have food, shelter, warmth, if you're a zombie and you haven't had those things in 200 years, you might put up with having to do a little work that is entertaining to your body. We're not asking them to do manual hard labor. We're asking them to go into a radioactive zone and clean it up. Places we can't be. Same with a mutant. A mutant doesn't prefer human meat. Mutants can eat Brahmin. They'd rather have a cooked steak than a raw corpse or a raw human. If I tell them, hey, if you come work, if you agree to be indentured in servitude for us, in exchange, you get a place where you don't have to worry about violence. All you have to do is work that is clean up, manual labor, but not industrial. Shovels, pickaxes, and clean up areas so humans can inhabit that area. Why not take that?
Okay. Well, sure. Fair point, considering the amenities you're granting, but that's not really sounding like, quote unquote, slavery. That's just
forced.
Sounding like what they do.
You can't live in our society as a zombie or an abomination unless you are a slave. That's it. That makes it slavery. You're not allowed to be about. You don't have rights. You're property. A company signs off on you. You are property of that company or that person. And you can't just do it to get around human laws, human workers, to undercut. They have to do it so that way they're doing a job that requires that radiation immunity. Or, in the case of a mutant, pure muscle strength over machine strength of an operator.
Then, Mr. Klink, I'm not sure how much you have read the Constitution or its amendments, but you know what? I feel like right now is a good pivoting point to move on from there.
Cross question. If a wastelander saves a federal city, fights in its wars, and raises loyal children, do they ever stop being impure?
Now, personally, I feel like this is a very, very simple question to answer, and the answer is no. No matter what you do, you can't change biology. Period.
I would agree. I think that's a simple answer, and they're still American. Now, I would say that implicitly, citizenship to not to the United States, but to something like Fission City, requires duty, requires service, so that way you contribute to it, and that would make them citizens of the city, not of the United States.
So, I guess this is one of those grounding points that we can both agree on. And it's nice to see that.
McCoy, wastelanders under your system work, live under federal authority, and fuel the economy, but cannot vote, own land, or hold currency. Why is that not feudalism?
It's not feudalism. I can see how it can be perceived as that, because these people are in that system would be, quote unquote peasants, but in this system, the head of state here is elected. The government has a legislature, right? It's not feudalism, largely because of the workings of how the government works together, I can see how it has a feudalist tone to it, but at the same time, it's kind of what Chicago does too, and I can't really blame them for that if we do the same.
I would disagree. Chicago does not prevent people from voting, does not prevent people from owning land, does not prevent people from holding currency. What McCoy is really establishing is a merchant republic where the elites can vote, but they're still serfs. And everyone is a serf besides the merchant class and the Doge. And he is the Doge.
More or less so, but also...
that is a system that was akin to feudalism, and the feudalistic nobles allowed it because it was so close to feudalism that they even made Venetian, for the example of the Republic of Venice, Venetian families noble. They said, hey, even though you didn't come from Charlemagne, you're allowed into our secret group our elite group, because, well, you're rich and established. It wasn't common, but they were still noble. So McCoy's New York is a noble state, a feudalistic state, and only certain people can act as nobles.
I mean, yeah, sure, you can frame it like that. And I think on top of it is kind of something that has to be like more broader interpreted, because this system, right, it isn't what America is before the bombs dropped, sure, but it is something we adapt. And again, these people aren't really people. I wouldn't really say that. And on top of that, it's not feudalism, yeah, government system. But even if you got rid of that and say, it was feudalism, the only thing that's grounding us from not liking the idea is because of the brotherhood, right? All this, right? It's not illegal under the American Constitution either. We can do this and we can still be American, unlike slavery, but we'll move on from there.
Klink. Your impure caste can vote, serve, and govern locally, but will never truly rule. Why conceal the caste system from them if it's just?
Because they shouldn't be concerned about it. You can do almost everything. You just can't be part of the political institutions. When it comes to how political parties worked before the Great War in the old world, it was only lasting about 80, 90 years, where public primaries meant you could just enter in. It's not unconstitutional to prevent certain parties, certain persons from becoming a party nominee. Now, I will say my system allows them to try and run their own political institution in primary to get into office, but the likelihood of that occurring is very low. There's just not enough institutional power. And so what really it is a consensus between every party to prevent impure FEV afflicted peoples from running the institution, running the money.
Oh, that is a fantastic way to dodge a question, because that wasn't really the question you were asked. The question you were asked is, in essence, why are you hiding the system from them if it is just like, if I were a wastelander in Chicago, right, I don't know about like all of this, you know, backhand stuff that's going on, and it's like you're concealing it for them so that they can fall into line. Well, what happens if you just start telling all these second-class people, you know, how ill benefited they are in this system and how they'll eventually not be needed? Well, what happens then?
They're not being killed, and if they prefer, they can leave. What it's saying to them and why it's concealed is because it's unimportant. People can still work and have a better life than they would on the outside. If they're inside, there's rules. Sometimes not all rules are clearly visible because some people would take advantage of that. So when a person is informed, they can know. It's not illegal to know, but the state has, as an apparatus, has a duty to conceal that information, not immediately say, oh, you are prevented from this. It's not illegal to spread that information, but it would be in the state's interest to prevent them from trying to uproot the system that they are benefiting from for themselves. If the wasteland infected persons knew that, hey, if we all band together, we can rock this ship, why wouldn't it end up being what it is on the outside? Only a core of elite establishments that uproot the entire system being allowed to govern is the way to keep the society together. If we just allow everybody to do whatever they want all the time, it'd be anarchy. It'd be like the outside. The societal order exists to preserve itself.
Cross question. Is citizenship something you earn, something you're born into, or something the state grants at convenience?
Citizenship is something you inherit. These terms are not expedient to what they really mean. Just because you're born on American soil, it doesn't automatically mean you're an American citizen. You could be trespassing. Just because you can eventually earn citizenship doesn't mean that it disparages people who didn't have to earn it. It's something you inherit from your forefathers. And that's a right. That's a God-given right. And it's not something that you can just simply wave a magic wand and say certain classes are and certain classes aren't.
Something that a lot of people might not like to hear, but it's true, it's what we've been doing, is, citizenship is something that we grant at convenience. Because, it's convenient to say that we are America, that we are the people who are entitled to all of this. And we do that so that it makes it more legally easy, so we don't have to go down the slippery slope of, birthright citizenship. For the most part, as far as New York goes, there is birthright citizenship in a sense excluded for the impure, of course, because we refuse to give them documentation. But largely, and this is among most of the enclave, it's just something we grant at convenience.
McCoy. The Federal Patriot Agency targets communists and monitors wastelanders. Who watches the agency itself?
Now, the Federal Patriot Agency, it seems like a pretty big organization. There's a lot of big jobs, right? And I can see why people are a little bit nervous on who watches the agency itself. And the agency, think of it like how the CIA operated in pre-war America. The CIA, does a lot of stuff, blah blah blah. Mainly managed by the head of state, checked in occasionally by the legislature here in New York. But I think that its job is very important to keep our interests from being diluted by the Red Menace and Wastelanders.
I have not much to say besides the agency seems like a stooge, a Vault-Tec simile, where they want an apparatus of a state that can control the power for themselves, and eventually those institutions corrupt themselves like Vault-Tec corrupted itself when they pick and choose what to follow and what's not important. So it's worrisome, but without more information, there's not much comment to be made.
Klink. Your party labels groups like the Brotherhood of Steel as domestic terrorists. Is ideological defiance now a crime?
Whoa! They are not just ideologically different. They are criminal. They do not believe in people's fundamental rights. That's not an ideological difference. That's not they believe in communism, I believe in capitalism. That is enforced feudalism. They steal the technology from your hands. That's a crime. That's not a difference between us. That's not a value we can hold. If you believe people should work for you and give you their children and feed you in exchange for protection that is weak at best, that's not an ideological difference. That's an entire society difference. That's a crime. That's a mob.
You answered that question very nicely, Mr. Klink. That.
Cross question. Is your greatest fear external enemies or Americans who reject your vision of America?
Now, personally, my greatest fear is external enemies, not Americans who reject my vision of America. Primarily because, basis on how we, structure ourselves. And the definition of America varies, but between us here in the enclave. However, I do still think we are still at war with China. That's already something that keeps me up at night, considering that we don't know what's going on in China. Never heard there. The closest we've been to China was the Ola rig, and still nothing radio silent. Yeah, maybe like the Xi, but it's a threat. Yeah, sure, we nuked them, but you see how much people survived the nukes dropped here, and considering how much people China have, how many survived there. That's so. Yes, definitely external enemies.
I don't believe the external enemies are as strong. China is a mess. Europe was worse even before the bombs dropped. Americans who reject our vision are the greatest fear for me, because these are people who will trample over each other just to be ahead of their neighbor rather than cooperate with one another. I think we liberally attach enemy to every person. And that's not true just because someone disagrees with our vision or wants to live in a communal life. That doesn't necessarily mean they're our enemy. The enemies of the United States are those who would trample on our liberty to do what we would want, enforce us into obligations to them, or in other ways curtail our ability to express ourselves and be free. So when it comes to the greatest fear, it'd be those kinds of people. The neo-feudalists, the Californian secessionists, who frankly think that they're America too, but are the United Kingdom. Their parliament, that they call a Congress, does not function the same. America had tons of lobbyists, but at the end of the day, you knew the president was elected by your vote. Their parliament does not allow their president to be elected by the voice of the people. Their president is elected by the parliament. Their president can be removed by the parliament in a vote of no confidence. In the United States, just because you remove the president through an impeachment doesn't mean you get to select the next president. It means the vice president, who was elected by the American people, succeeds. In the NCR, in the California Secessionist Society, it means whoever the hell the parliament wants to pick. Those gives me fear.
McCoy, your economy relies on a permanently excluded labor class. What happens when wastelanders realize they'll never be equals, no matter their loyalty?
I think that, they already know that they're not going to be equals, right? As soon as they got into the system. They're doing it to live, they're doing it so that they can get certain amenities and for protection. Work for us, you get to be protected. Yeah, it's very, very simple. Just like what you say, yeah, it's better than out there, except, yeah, we monitor our wastelanders more than you do up north there. And their loyalty gets them more resources. That's it. If you express loyalty, you get to live a little more comfortably. But other than that, they know by the get-go they're never going to be equals, and it hasn't made a issue yet.
Klink. Segregated armies and unequal rights have historically bred mutiny. Why would your system succeed where the old world failed?
I would argue it didn't fail in the old world. In fact, those societies lasted thousands of years. In the modern era, there were a few times it didn't work out so well, but we successfully fought both Germany and Japan in the Second World War with segregated armies and unequal rights. There were minor problems, but it wasn't a mass system. And you embed federal troops into these National Guard armies. They're not completely segregated. They're segregated in their dress and their equipment. The segregated armies are considered more standard line infantry, and the federal troops are considered more elite infantry. They're not segregated by what command they follow. One who is a National Guards person could have a higher rank and command an authority over the non-segregated federal army if the scenario requires. It's more of a tactic. I don't believe people with less rights should be forced to fight battles that they have less chance of winning. And because the federal troops are just so much of a higher quality, it makes sense to put them in more dangerous scenarios where they know what they're fighting for is more deeply ingrained in their heart. Now, there will be times when the National Guard is swamped, it is attacked, and it'll have to fight a battle it cannot expect to always win. But I don't think they would falter and mutiny because our enemies are objectively a worse experience for them. To be under the neo-feudalist regime would mean to give up every piece of technology you own if they want it, and to give up farm production, give up your kids to their established armies.
Well, yeah, you gotta understand that the old world, you know, for the most part, dropped those ideals when it came onto the late 20th century, because it just didn't really work. You either integrate people or not, because as soon as these people start fostering in your society, that's kind of what happened. It works for a while, you know, I'll give you that, but eventually there's going to have to be choices made, and I could already see that in the politics of Chicago now, right? I've been looking at, you know, like past like election results. I've been reading up on the political history of Chicago, and I'm becoming more and more apparent that it's just you have a constant struggle. Although I will admit it is pretty impressive that the Federalists have maintained such popularity.
I would argue McCoy's system is way worse off for breeding mutiny against the state. A segregated army is just a small fraction of society, but a segregated economy is what fuels things like the civil rights movement.
Right, and there, what ends up like happening, right? Like, yeah, we're excluding them, but we're keeping them under tech watch, and systems like that have lasted for literally thousands of years. You know,
Can you name one?
It's because name one, Egypt, Rome. You know.
Did Egypt not nearly collapse during the Bronze Age collapse?
So, one of the oldest society.
Did Rome not have several mutinies of the slaves? Have you never heard of the great story of Spartacus? Did it not have several wars with Caesar, Augustus, Mark Antony, and Pompey?
Yeah, but then you start circling around the idea that nothing works forever. What really matters is what works for the longest.
It didn't work after it stopped being a republic. You're a dictatorship. You're a dictatorship of the elite. So was the late Roman Empire. But when it was a republic, even when people were segregated, they had rights. Even when the nobles controlled 90% of it, the bottom 100% or 99% of people still had the ability to change the system, had the ability to work and build themselves up. In your economy, if we take Rome as an example, they'd have no right to establish a business. The state controls the industry.
I mean, look, let's say, did a cow in Rome get to open a shop? No, only humans get to.
If a cow could, a cow would. If a cow could run a shop, it would be allowed to run a shop.
Yeah, but like, okay. Look around it like this, right? It's more so the fact that it's a system made for the most efficiency. We don't have to necessarily put our economy on expenditure for people that just solely aren't worth it. And yeah, it breeds a mutiny for sure, but if you keep it locked in, it doesn't become, too much of an issue.
cross question. Is stability built on efficiency or consent?
Efficiency.
I would agree efficiency, but I don't see how McCoy could argue it isn't consent, because his whole society is built on consent.
The society is built on consent for the
You have to
humans,
agree
right?
to not have any rights. It's not efficient.
I mean-
You're not picking the brightest minds to run your economy, to run your nation. You're picking Nepo babies.
If Nepo babies are what the people elect, then Nepo babies are going to be the people who run the government. And that is just how it is and how it always will be. That's kind of what American society is.
If people who are already ingrained at the top are crony already, are they not going to elect people who will also keep them on the top, thus damaging any perspective for the people on the bottom?
Define the people on the bottom. Are you talking about the people who are wastelanders or the
People
citizens?
who aren't at the top. I mean, even an enclave or a vault dweller. Will a vault dweller who's been working as a mechanic really view the great McCoy as being a fair leader if he knows that the cronies will keep voting for the top man and not allow him to have any access to state monopolies? Even though he's considered a citizen, he's still not allowed to build industry for himself. He's still not allowed to sell his services without state involvement.
The system in New York is built with that kind of in mind because, yeah, there's a plethora of job options from a plethora of employers, but there's a reason why the government holds a bunch of shares, right? It's primarily because, right, we need to be able to pay the people who serve us and our interests in, warfare and stuff like that, like great sums. So if you don't find a good life corporationally, you sign up. A bunch of people sign up. The corporations don't really have a bunch of employers. The economy, sure, it takes a little hit, but at the end of the day, the employers start to realize that they gotta put some fair systems in place if they want to get people to work for them. So either we all go down with it, or they realize that they like having money.
Klink, you argue President Eden was right. If history proves Eden wrong again, what's your failsafe?
He's dead. He could be proven wrong. But even if he was proven wrong, the ideology behind Eden is more important than what exactly went on in Raven Rock that we don't have all the historical documents for. We know what he discussed. We have the radio recordings.
McCoy, your ideology treats communists as biologically equivalent to wastelanders. Is ideology now a genetic crime?
That's a misunderstanding here. They're treated as if they had a genetic liability. They don't have a genetic liability, right? Ideology can be changed, right? If they were a communist, right? And I know some people who are in my ranks and have been, kind of taken away from that community out of their patriotism, right? And that's a good thing. People can change. But if you don't change fast enough, we catch you. Unfortunately, you're going to be out kicking rocks just like the rest of them. So it is not necessarily a crime, but it is a societal thing that we watch for, if that makes sense.
If there's punishments, it's a crime. That's all I'm going to say. I think McCoy's running out of his mentats again. Hopefully that doesn't become a crime.
Cross question. Which past failure of the United States are you most determined not to repeat? And which one are you willing to risk repeating?
So the past failure of the United States that I am most determined not to repeat are the constitutional failures of the government. One of my favorite examples being the Commonwealth system. The time that I realized that America has truly changed and truly been demented is when the Commonwealth system was in place. Now, I don't have a lot of records now, but I have records of my ancestors from all the way back living in America, and for them, they were in Nevada, and Nevada got grouped in with California, right? So California got split in half by the Commonwealth system, dividing communities, merging it with Nevada and some other northern states, right? Like how they group together communities doesn't match the communities. America itself is a community, but it doesn't necessarily mean that each part of America isn't distinct in its own way. And keeping identity like that is very important. And it also bred constitutional liabilities with how the systems of government worked.
The United States' biggest failure was not during its continual existence, but right after its presumed death. Many of our government officials began betraying one another the minute the bombs dropped. The war in itself was not a mistake. We knew it was coming, and Communist China couldn't accept defeat. What we didn't know was that people like Thomas Eckhart would try to usurp authority for secret organizations that refer to themselves as enclave, but are not legally a part of the United States. They're not federal enclaves. So if I were to do one thing, I'd be determined not to have continuity of government be put in the hands of untrusting politicians. Thomas Eckhart wasn't on the oil rig for a reason. He shouldn't have been trusted in the first place to go to White Springs. At the door, they should have shot him. He should have been removed. The one mistake I'm willing to risk repeating was the Vault-Tec program, Project Safe House. I think for all of its flaws, the fact that it saved any Americans through its control vaults is worthwhile. And there were things that were learned, and they should be taken into consideration. But Vault-Tec was an evil corporation. The United States just did not have the ability to build so many federal enclaves for every citizen. Even Vault-Tec couldn't get that many vaults going. So if I could willing to repeat it, I would even let more companies in. I guess the one caveat I would have is to prevent it becoming a monopoly. I know Pulaski Shelters was trying, but they clearly didn't have the infrastructure to put real bunker security in. Real nuclear safe habitats.
Right, and okay, I think just personally that was it was a good take, to be sure, but the issues with the continuity of the government, I feel like stem less, sweet coming from me, stem less from like Eckhart's, like communism, whatever. Yeah, sure, he should have been excluded. But originally, what happened, right, was though it was inevitably, the 13 Commonwealths that implemented that. It basically put together a bunch of powers so close, so tight, to allow such things to happen. So in essence, Eckhart is a byproduct of said system.
I don't care much for the Commonwealth system either. I mean, I'm just thinking, what's the bigger failure? And I'm determined not to repeat that failure versus a federal system of government. I don't believe in a Commonwealth system because the federal and state systems worked so well. I don't know all the context of why a Commonwealth system was needed, of why we needed to have a micro-federal level that seemingly did nothing besides organize structures that were beyond administrative reasons. We had judicial branches. We've had 9 judicial branches. So it would have made more sense to just leave it to those 9 judicial district court levels or federal district court levels rather than having 13. I don't always see the similarities between all 13 commonwealths. So to me, that's, just aesthetic. But the Eckhart problem and that is more aligned with federal problems. I don't think it has anything to do with Commonwealth problems. He was not allowed into the control station enclave. He instead went to the White Springs federal enclave and tried to usurp power for himself to continue a war that was already over.
Very well said. Very well said.
Cross question. If Vault Channel 9 viewers wake up tomorrow under your government, what freedom do they lose, and what security do they gain?
Well, personally, I feel like, as it goes for Chicago and New York, almost unilaterally, the main people watching this would, retain their rights according to, the Renaissance. However, of course, with the exclusion of wastelanders, but in general, it would be the retention of rights.
If Vault Channel 9 viewers wake up tomorrow under my government, they wouldn't notice much. If they were already in a place where they can watch television or listen to the radio, they already have all the freedoms that they need. The security comes from reliable electricity, reliable water, reliable markets, reliable food. That's the security. A physical force. Any person can provide somewhat of a physical force. But does your physical force have the ability to protect your property if you buy it outside of the main habitat? If you have a wall, does it protect beyond the wall? Federalism protects you beyond the wall. And that's what you would gain under the Federalist Party.
Final question. In one sentence, why should history remember your America as the one that finally endured?
So, one sentence, I think that I think it would be the reclamation of what we once were. Just simplify it to a statement. What we once were. We were humans. We were a government capable of...
Is that more than a sentence? Moderator, is that more than a sentence?
Okay. All right, Mr. Klink. But I'm, putting meaning behind my... More of a phrase, really. Just...
In one sentence? Is that a sentence?
What was? Simple. What?
Okay, I'll make this one sentence. I promise it'll be one sentence. We restored it to the way it was before.
Wow.